October 1985, Beth Barnard and two girlfriends were holidaying in the Maldives when they were approached by a local Indian palm reader.
Now do bets.
I can't read your palm, I'm sorry.
11 months later, Beth Barnard was murdered. The events surrounding Beth's brutal death have the classic ingredients of an Alfred Hitchcock thriller: adultery, conspiracy, suicide, and murder. Unlike a Hitchcock film, this is real life, and the ending doesn't quite add up. Tonight, three remarkable psychics and a team of private investigators uproot hard evidence that finally will provide a satisfying ending to this 18-year-old murder mystery.
There's been a bit of a love triangle and it's got out of control and someone's been murdered and someone's gone missing.
When police went to this isolated homestead not far from the Phillip Island fishing village of Rill, they were shocked by the scene that greeted them. Her killer had carved a bizarre alphabetical symbol on her chest.
The family became concerned regarding where Vivienne was.
The whole suicide scenario is just a cover-up for her murder.
There was a cover-up. She's throwing a blanket over it. She's throwing a cover over it.
There's only about 5 families on the island that matter, and they're one of them.
The whole region, not just Phillip Island, was talking about this. I mean, it was the biggest gossip, and probably will be, that the area's ever known.
It's like I feel there's clues that have been there and they've actually been missed.
There's almost humorously obvious things set up like an episode of Murder, She Wrote.
It simply doesn't make sense. Like many people around here, I'd like to see justice done.
We need answers.
The most compelling piece of evidence in our entire investigation appears to have gone unnoticed by police in their brief to the coroner.
The police obviously missed it because it was such a small item, it was so easy to miss.
She keeps saying, "You know who it is."
G'day, Papa, how you going?
Beth had the most magnificent eyes. She had really sparkling, happy, fun eyes, and she was a magnet. Everybody, you'd want to meet her and you'd want to know her, and if you'd met her and spoken to her, you'd love her too. We did a lot of things together. We'd meet up on weekends and go riding. I can remember we'd take picnic lunches and ride down and have our lunch down there on the foreshore and then ride home probably nearly dark, and her mum and dad would be panicking about where Beth had got to. We were just really good childhood friends.
I think Beth was a bit of a nature girl in a way, because she liked working outside and being outside, and I suspect that's why she got the job at the Penguin Parade. Beth was an integral part of that team, always on for a chat and a bit of a joke. And I guess that was a bit of a novelty for all the guys there. Quite often after work at night time, it was very hot, so we all headed down to the beach for a drink.
Said you would.
Come on. Girls said, "Come on, let's go for a swim as well."
Go on.
Nah.
Chickens!
Too cold for me, mate.
They ended up going skinny dipping. And I remember Michael and myself just sitting up in the stand there drinking champagne, having a bit of a laugh over it all.
Beth soon found romance with co-worker and local farmer Fergus Cameron.
Going to work for the Camerons would just have been a natural progression. They had a large farm. It was just the sort of job that she would really have enjoyed, because it was working outside, it was working with animals.
We had a party at Beth's place, I remember that very well. I even remember Fergus, he brought his bullwhip along and he was doing whip cracking displays.
Okay, who's first?
You know, we all got a bit tipsy and a bit of flirting going on, I suppose. She was just in that part of her life where there was just so many possibilities.
Former homicide detective Rory O'Connor led the investigation into Beth Barnard's murder.
We believe the last person to see Beth alive at this particular stage was Fergus Cameron. Fergus said in his statement that he had visited Beth that night.
Not really.
It was mainly as a welfare check because she had had a cold. I understand he'd left her alive and well around about 9 o'clock.
See ya.
Sometime later, I believe she has heard somebody come to the house. It appeared to me that it was an injury caused by a knife straight to her face. It knocked a tooth out, so it was a pretty violent attack. She has grabbed for the knife, done anything to stop the attack. In a normal crime scene, the weapon is normally thrown away, taken from the scene, or in some way tried to be cleaned up and put somewhere else. This one probably indicates that the person didn't care. Didn't care whether they were discovered or not. The fact that the blood was smeared over the body shows that there was some definite intent. It wasn't as if it was just blind rage. There's evidence that there's blood in the sink, so they may have washed themselves. It's not as if they've run in, committed the murder and run out. They have lingered in the house, and even possibly had a cigarette in the house, probably contemplating what they're going to do next. There was no other disturbances outside the house. The back door was left ajar, which we believe was the entry point anyway, so we believe they've left via the back door too.
Well, early that morning, I think it's about 9:25 from memory, I received a phone call from Sergeant Cliff Ash from Cowes Police. He told me that there was a possible murder scene at McPhee's Road. I went inside the house, and to the left in the bedroom, I found her body there. I saw her throat was cut, and she had other stab wounds. And there was quite a lot of blood in the house. And there's also a knife nearby. And she had an A, which was carved across here. It meant something anyway, obviously.
A could have stood for a lot of different things. Maybe in this particular instance it may have stood for adulteress or something similar. We did know of a book that was written called The Scarlet Letter, and I think on that particular day that was what our thoughts were on it, that it was a message left on the body.
I do remember her saying something about this relationship she was having with a married man, and I said to her, Beth, don't have relationships with married men. It's far too dangerous. You're playing with fire.
This is cosy.
I wish I'd done more. I wish I'd said more. But it's too late.
You saw nothing, all right? We're just good friends.
Bullshit. Why are you doing this to us?
We believe that Vivienne Cameron had numerous arguments with her husband regarding his association with Beth Barnard.
It's all in your head, all right? You're going round the bed, you get another paranoid bullshit delusion.
And she'd even been driven to ringing up Lifeline at a particular time. So we knew that she was very upset about the relationship. I actually believe that Vivienne Cameron, Fergus's wife, would have had a definite motive. We believe that she was just driven to the point where she saw no other way out, and that's caused her to do what she's done on the particular night.
The following events cover the 20-hour period surrounding Beth's murder. These critical events were pieced together from statements and presented to the coroner's court.
Fergus said in his statement that he had visited Beth that night.
Any better?
Oh, not really.
It was mainly as a welfare check because she had had a cold. I understand he'd left her alive and well around about 9 o'clock. When we spoke to Fergus Cameron, he did say that he had an argument with his wife that night, and at which stage he had told her about his relationship with Beth Barnard.
They told me you left an hour ago.
I had a quick chat with Beth.
I knew you were with that bitch!
She became very volatile. She'd apparently been drinking a glass of wine, and she broke the glass of wine on his head and then stabbed him in the back with the glass of wine, which caused injuries that did need hospital attention. Vivienne has taken Fergus Cameron to hospital. Fergus's sister Marnie and her husband Anne came around to mind the two boys while they were at the hospital. They discovered the blood and glass, some bloody clothing and towels, and further evidence of blood throughout the house. Apparently they cleaned up the broken glass to prevent accidents because we never found any evidence in the house. After Fergus and Vivienne returned from the hospital, they had a long discussion and decided at that particular stage that they would divorce.
I think they'll be better off here with you.
Fergus would take the children and still remain on the island at the home there, whereas Vivienne would go to Melbourne and live with her family there.
I'm going to stay at Marnie's tonight then.
Vivienne has taken Fergus to his sister's premises. Vivienne has then returned back to her house in the Kingswood. The 3 a.m. phone call was made, we believe, by Vivienne to her friend Robin Dixon. Robin Dixon's husband took the phone call.
Hello.
And she said on the phone that there'd been trouble and could he come over and look after the children.
Is everything all right, Viv?
He didn't ask any further questions, I believe, at that stage. But he has woken his wife and asked her to go with him so that they didn't spook the children when they went around. At that particular stage, we believe Vivienne has transferred into the Land Cruiser, and any action she's taken after that particular time has been done in the Land Cruiser. The last thing that she was seen wearing was a mohair jumper. Well, around 3:30 a.m, a neighbour of Beth's awoke to hear a large vehicle matching the Cameron's Land Cruiser approaching the Barnard property. Later on, Vivienne Cameron's farm vehicle was parked near the Phillip Island Bridge. Robin Dixon told us that she did try and ring Vivienne Cameron the following morning, but there was no answer at the house. She eventually rang Fergus's brother.
Yeah? Robin Dixon here. I've got the boys here and I need to go to work.
And that's when the family became concerned regarding where Vivienne was.
I'm a bit concerned for Beth. Go straight round there.
Fergus Cameron suggested that his brother and his brother-in-law check on the premises where Beth Barnard was living. Fergus was still suffering from the injuries he'd received the night before, and I don't think he wanted to be the one, if anything had happened to Beth, I don't think he wanted to be the one to discover the body. Just after that, both Ian Cairns and Don Cameron went around to Beth's premises in McPhee's Road, and that's where they discovered the body.
Ian!
They immediately reported the finding to the police. The Land Cruiser belonging to the Cameron's farm was seen later on that afternoon, about 4 o'clock, by a member of the Cameron family. Pam Cameron, I believe it was, who actually saw it, and she locked it up and then rang the police from that.
Today, police forensic experts conducted a minute examination of the Toyota, believed to be used regularly as a work vehicle.
The cigarettes were still in it. We did know that Vivienne was a heavy smoker. Her purse was actually in it, which had credit cards in it and small change. Her bag was in the car. It was unlocked. Now, given the circumstance of what had happened that night, it was only natural that we start looking for her as a matter of urgency straight away. Once we believed that she had jumped off the bridge, we were anxious to try and recover a body if there was one to be found. We didn't expect to find much evidence unless it was trapped in a pocket around the actual bridge supports itself. There was the thought that it may be washed up around the actual area. So we had the SES and we had police search and rescue do searches right around the particular area, but we were unable to locate anything.
A coronial inquiry was held into the death of Beth Barnard 12 months after her murder. At the conclusion, Magistrate Barry Marr found that Beth died from knife wounds in her chest and throat. The coroner went on to determine that these wounds were inflicted by another person and that Vivienne Cameron contributed to her death. 11 months later, the same magistrate presided over an inquest into the death of Vivienne. He concluded that, although her body has not been found, he was satisfied that she is dead and that she leapt from the bridge into the water. The coroner's finding alludes to murder-suicide, but overlooks the testimony of a key witness.
Glenda Frost received a phone call 6 hours after Vivienne allegedly committed suicide.
Hello? The phone rang at 10 and it was Vivienne Cameron.
Oh, hi, Viv.
Glenda had no idea that Vivienne was presumed missing.
She was wanting a gift to buy for one of the girls that were leaving from the community centre.
You found out anything or where to buy the patchwork house kit for Isabel?
Oh, look, no, I'm sorry, Viv. I've just been too busy.
She wasn't any different to any other time. The way she spoke to me, and I mean, Viv, she didn't know about the murder, I'm sure.
Bye, Viv.
I can't say that Glenda was wrong because she honestly, truly believes she received that phone call and I can't explain it. We presented these things to the coroner.
I was challenged about the day and the time, etc. Fortunately, I have my friend Pam to witness my phone call. Because of the subject and Vivienne's response, I knew it was her. It was definitely Vivienne Cameron.
I actually believe that the coroner has made the only conclusion he could given the investigation that we conducted down at Phillip Island.
Next, the plot thickens and the local islanders revolt.
I think the coroner's finding was fairly inadequate.
It never seemed to add up.
Vivienne could not have done that.
I'm not the last one to have spoken to Vivienne Cameron because there were the voices in the background.
It appears to me that maybe there are 2 murders on the island, not one.
One man who regards the Phillip Island case as a personal crusade is Walkley Award-winning journalist Richard Schmeisel.
I moved down here with my wife about 6 or 7 years before the tragedy, and in that time we both became acquainted with Fergus, with Vivienne, and I knew the murdered woman as well. And of course, for something like that to happen to people you know, it is quite extraordinary. I saw Vivienne a week before and I hadn't seen her for some time, and I was struck by how much weight she'd lost. And I complimented her on that, and she appeared a very, very sad, tragic woman. And she said, "Yes, Richard, I'm trying to save my marriage." But there was a sadness in her eyes that made me feel very, very sorry for her. And of course, a week later, she went missing.
At the time of the tragedy, Beth was having an affair with Fergus Cameron. Fergus had been married to Vivienne for 10 years. Together they had 2 children, Dugald and Hugh. Fergus's brother Don was a shire councillor married to Pam. Older sister Marnie was married to Ian. Fergus Cameron and his extended family own a substantial part of Phillip Island. and until recently had a controlling interest in the Grand Prix racetrack.
There's only about 5 families on the island that matter, and they're one of them.
The murder of Beth and the alleged suicide of Vivienne impacted greatly on the tight-knit Cameron clan.
The whole region, not just Phillip Island, was talking about this. I mean, it was the biggest gossip, and probably will be, that the area's ever known. It was well known on Phillip Island that Fergus and his wife Vivienne had for many years had serious marital problems. She'd been battling to hang on to her husband for quite some time. Vivienne had told people for many weeks before the tragedy that she may be leaving Fergus, but if she did, she would take the boys.
I think they'll be better off here with you.
The claim that Vivienne said that Fergus would make a better husband and father than she would make a wife and mother, and she would casually leave the boys with him and she'd go back to Melbourne and start a new life. I find that absolutely staggering. She adored those boys. She would not just casually walk out of their lives like that.
I don't believe Vivienne did take her own life. She had too much to give up, too much to lose.
Most people respected her for being a woman of high values. It was just known that Vivienne was always there for the boys. She was a devoted mother, and I was involved with her with the community centre, and we really liked the work she did and her feeling towards other people.
The Vivienne I knew was articulate, intelligent, caring, compassionate, who took casseroles to people who weren't feeling very well, who looked for a home for kittens so that they wouldn't be put down, and had a sense of humour. And I can't see the sort of person that I knew as doing an extremely horrific murder like that.
Tim Watson-Munro is a leading forensic psychologist. Throughout his career, he has seen 20,000 offenders and often counsels the victims' families.
I've certainly had 1 or 2 murders out of about 200 that I've done over the years where, on impulse, a woman has picked up a knife in the kitchen and lunged at the husband in a fit of rage. But I can't think of any case at all where a woman's then gone out and killed another woman over something like infidelity. It's highly unusual for a woman to, I think, reflect in the way that has been the case here over a period of hours and then go around and crank up the rage again to orchestrate such a frenzied attack.
Crime author Vicky Botrytis co-wrote a factual account of the case in her book, The Phillip Island Murder.
I researched the Phillip Island case for 2 years. It was the first book that I ever wrote, and it just absolutely consumed me. When our book first came out, it wasn't allowed to be sold on the island. The people that owned the bookstores were friends of the Camerons, and the book was banned. There was a flood of people crossing the bridge to go and buy it in San Remo or Cranbourne did a roaring trade.
The book, The Phillip Island Murder, was co-written by Paul Daly, a prominent Sunday Age journalist. On the week before it was published, the Sunday Age ran a full-page story on the tragedy, on the book. When that story was published on the Sunday, you couldn't buy a Sunday Age on Phillip Island. A small group of people went around to every outlet, 7 in the morning, 7:30 or whatever, and bought every copy of the Sunday Age. So there have been serious attempts to minimise any publicity about this. There have been great attempts to sweep it under the table and let's get on with life and let's get on with business. So there were a couple of missing women. One was murdered and the other one probably committed suicide. So 2 families were ruined, and that's not an exaggeration. 2 families were ruined. Vivienne's family has never recovered. Beth Barnard's family has never recovered. An absolutely scandalous tragedy. But the attitude of some people on Phillip Island involved in the case was, look, that's ancient history, let's get on with living. And that sort of attitude sickens many people. Sickened them then, sickens them still today, and I'm one of them.
When DNA technology became available, the Victoria Police re-examined evidence collected at the time of Beth's murder.
DNA testing at the Forensic Science Laboratory in McLeod has established it was Vivienne Cameron's blood found on the knife handle. But detectives now say DNA tests show conclusively Mrs. Cameron was the killer and confirm their original investigations and the coroner's finding, which cleared Mr. Cameron of any blame.
I spoke to the scientist who examined the evidence at the time, and he was never certain that the knife found near the body was actually the knife that killed Beth. There was these strange double cuts. It was like a line and a gap and then a little cut, and he had trouble saying that this straight kitchen knife could have made these cuts in the fabric, which were repeated throughout the fabric of the nightgown. I spoke to a knife expert who knew of a knife that could have made these double cuts, and he said that the knife was popular in the mid-1980s, but it's since been banned. He sent me some sketches, and as you can see, the knife has a straight blade, and then just near the handle it has two prongs. If the knife went in a downward thrust or in an upward thrust, you would get the exact same tears that were in Beth's nightgown.
Police have told us that DNA testing in 1995 proved conclusively that Fergus Cameron did not murder Beth Barnard. They are now certain that Fergus Cameron is completely innocent.
With so many unanswered questions, the time has come to launch a different kind of investigation.
I'm a Christian, so I don't really believe in psychics.
I would not use them, but I wouldn't go out and actually canvass them.
Personally, I don't believe in spooks and things like that.
I think if you work in psychology, you have to accept there are a lot of things about the human mind that we're yet to discover.
And I have no doubt that there are people who have an intuition or an insight into these things, and I want to know what happens just like everybody else. So if they have the answer, I want to know.
Next, two talented psychics apply their skills towards solving the Phillip Island murder mystery.
To assist in the Phillip Island case,
100 psychics from across the country were individually tested. 2 obscure murders were chosen for the testing procedure. Presented with only a photograph of the victim, the psychics were asked to provide details of the crime, the location, and killer. Of the 100 psychics tested, only 5 were able to describe intimate details in both test cases. 2 of these, Debbie Malone and Ruth Wilson, have been chosen to investigate the Phillip Island murder.
Ruth Wilson is a highly regarded clairvoyant.
Looks like this long knife that I'm seeing.
She has her own talkback radio show and is an honoured member of the International Psychic Institute in London.
When I was about 4, my mother and my aunt were very sad because the gentleman across the road had died, and I couldn't understand why they were so upset because I could see him walking behind the cortege. I have various ways that I pick up information. I can pick it up as like a little mini video or movie within my third eye, inside my inner vision. I can see it as a snapshot. I can have a smell or a taste or a sense or a feeling, or I can hear something. So it just depends what sort of information they want to get through to me.
Debbie Malone's psychic ability began when she started seeing visions of murders in her sleep. For the last 12 years, she has assisted the New South Wales Police Department in their missing persons investigations.
I can actually see them with my eyes. I hear them in my right ear, I hear them talk, but I actually sense their feelings. Sometimes if they've died and they've had an illness, I actually feel that illness in my body. It actually happened about 12 years ago. The worst part was that I didn't actually turn it on, it just came to me. It wasn't something I would have chosen.
For the purpose of this investigation, the psychics are aware that they're working on an unsolved murder. However, they've been given no details of the case or the people involved. The psychics have been flown from interstate to minimise their exposure to the case, and the production team gave no responses during the readings. With so little information, you may wonder how psychics do what they do. In the field of quantum physics, a controversial theory proposes that the universe is much like a three-dimensional hologram. When a regular photograph is torn apart, each piece is only one part of the whole image. However, something quite astonishing happens with a hologram. When a hologram is shattered, the whole image is in each and every part.
If the universe really is like a hologram, then this would explain how psychics can see the whole life of a person when given just one part. Ruth and Debbie are given just one part of Beth's life, an audio cassette. The cassette was a voice recording made for an overseas friend. The cover has Beth's handwriting on it, but no names, places or details about the case.
Marie just sat there and laughed. We miss you even more.
What I'm getting is just a real sense of nervousness and fear that's coming up. It's fluttering up from the heart here. I feel that it's just, and now it's becoming more and more a developing sense of terror, and I'm feeling wind rushing past my face as though I'm travelling at speed, and I'm seeing someone, a soul passing over very quickly, travelling through many layers of energy as they go towards spirit, and being very glad to have left something behind.
My first impression is this is a male. I actually feel I'm near rocks. I keep feeling like I'm on rocks, and I don't know why. I feel I'm near the sea, but I'm looking at rocks. But it's more a feeling of my freedom there, and I love this place. And I just felt... I'll just tell you exactly what I'm hearing. I just keep hearing I have the need for speed, so I get the feeling that this person, that they like their life quite fast. Racing. I don't know that I race, but I feel like I like the speed of something.
And it feels like a feminine energy that's showing me this. And there seems to be a house involved, and there seems to be quite a lot of bush or scrub around this house. And it seems to have a pointed section at the front, like the roof line is pointed, and some steps leading up to a veranda. And I'm being shown this quite clearly.
Ruth has accurately described the house and its surrounds.
Now I'm worrying about my dog.
There seems to be a dog involved as well, so this may have been the family home.
Beth did have a dog, which was with her on the night of the murder.
I just get knives. I'm just getting knives. I'm hearing a car drive off very fast now. They're leaving. They're leaving the scene very quickly. And now I'm being told September, October, it seems significant in some way.
Beth died in September 1986.
I'm actually seeing a key ring, and it's like it's on a leather thong, but it's got a metal disc on the top of it. It looks like it's got the lion from Holden on it, and then the rest of the backing part is leather.
Vivienne drove a Holden Kingswood.
I'm smelling salt. And I don't know whether it's salt water or salt or brine. And I'm hearing clinking, but I'm feeling swaying as well. There may have been a boat nearby. I'm not quite sure what this is or where I'm being shown just yet.
Incredibly, the psychics have provided all this information working only with a plastic cassette tape.
When I was being shown by the spirit looking back down on Earth, I was zooming back on the planet, coming back to Australia, coming back down, certainly around Melbourne, but there's something about that lower area of Victoria.
I feel I'm going over a bridge, actually, so I feel like I'm on it's more like I'm on an island or something, but I'm connected by a big bridge, so I'm hearing penguins now. I don't know if it's like, I don't know if it's like Phillip Island, or it's like that feeling.
Next, Ruth and Debbie listened to the actual voice of the victim, recorded a short time before she was murdered. The psychics are now presented with a tape recorded by Beth just a short time before she died.
G'day, Copper, how you going? I hope that song reminds you of something, dancing around on a overwater disco. Well, we were so slack in writing letters, we thought we'd better speak to you in person. Well, life's been pretty much the same over here, except Marie's been up skiing around Hotham and she was gone for a whole 9 days. That's not as bad as you.
Yeah. Sorry, I can't work out what the link is. There's something, but I can't. There's a jealousy, it's a love conflict.
The sort of person that I was picking up before, very light, very bubbly, full of life, full of energy.
Around 23, maybe 23, 25, I'm sort of in around that age.
They're telling me 24, and I don't know whether that's 24 years ago or if that was her age, but I'm just getting 24 around that.
Beth died 3 months before her 24th birthday.
I feel as though she did something work-wise that may have been related to the perpetrator of the crime. It's almost like there's more than one energy there. So I'm seeing a male energy first, but there seems to be a female energy coming in as well.
Ruth and Debbie are now given a photograph of the victim.
Nice feel to this girl.
There's a number of people she's shown me, so I'm not sure. It's like there was a group of people that she was acquainted with.
Straggly, greasy hair, and almost like straight eyebrows.
The person I'm seeing is a male.
I feel they may have been at some point.
The feeling of the trust, it's like I had complete and utter trust.
I believe there was a bit of trust on her part to the person that committed the crime.
She can't believe someone could do that to her.
I don't know the depth of the relationship or whether she knew him well. I don't know if she liked him. I don't think she liked him. I'm not quite sure. There's someone else though. There's someone else on the side. Someone coming in.
I feel that there's actually 3 people, but one of them could be more a female gender, but more a tomboy type person.
It's almost like another woman or a controlling person coming into this relationship or coming in to create the situation, create the crime to be committed.
I feel like there could have been a jealousy that, say, the other person actually liked the victim, and they're telling me that set things in motion, actually.
She's saying something about jealousy, and I don't know why.
The other one was jealous of the victim because she thought that the boys liked her better. But it's like they both like the same boy.
The psychics now receive a photograph of Vivienne, the alleged perpetrator of the crime.
Oh, this looks like the other person, the one that I could see coming in from the side.
This horrible laugh. But I'm laughing because I know. I feel this person knows. Definitely. They know who did it. I feel could even be part of it.
There's certainly a karmic connection with this person.
I feel now it's like the other people were roped in because of this.
In a way, I almost feel as though this person doesn't want to be found. It's just a big blank. It's like a big blanket, like a big wet blanket that's gone plonk over this, the whole energy over this entire thing. My first impression, which I have to go with, I just go with that, I felt as though she had some connection with the committing of the crime, but not wanting to shed any light on it. Not being obstructive, but just not being helpful either.
I just feel like I've fallen but I'm... No, there's someone behind me and I think that something's going on. It's not a nice feeling.
I doubt whether this person is alive, actually. In fact, I think she's passed over. Just the sense of... I'm getting the nod from Spirit. I feel that she has passed over, yeah. I feel almost as though the body was moved or the body was taken somewhere to be hidden. That's the feeling I'm getting.
I just feel I'm in one spot, then I'm taken to another spot, and there's something going on with... There's some thick undergrowth.
Bushy and woody. And that undergrowth, again, I can smell that smell of damp undergrowth, damp leaves. And there seems to be also either a big covering like a tarpaulin or those really big, thick garden bags, like a really big, thick bag. And that may have something to do with the body.
Now I'm seeing two other people and they're walking away and they're saying they've got away. It's like they've got away with it. And there's a lot of frustration here because it's like they already had them, but they let them go. It's like it's so easy, why aren't you looking? It's like I feel there's clues that have been there and they've actually been missed. I'm being told they're being disregarded.
That's the feeling that I'm getting. She keeps saying, you know who it is.
Next, the psychics venture to Phillip Island on the trail of the killer.
I'm seeing tiles. I think it's like a bathroom or a laundry or something like that. Something, oh, yuck. Oh.
We're really sick around here.
There was a cover-up. It was almost as though they were like family or someone that was...
Phillip Island is located 140 kilometres to the southeast of Melbourne. Debbie and Ruth are driven separately and are blindfolded over the last part of the journey. Debbie arrives in McPhee's Road where Beth was murdered. Ruth arrives hours later. They are placed in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by open paddocks, water and distant houses. With no knowledge of the case, the psychics are asked to find the exact location where the victim's body was found. The only thing they are given to guide them is a photograph of the victim.
Just feeling while we're driving here, I was getting an awful sense of sickness, excitement as we're driving down here, but sickness, and I've been feeling really nauseous in around the community type of thing, as though people are hiding things. And it's like she wanted to drag me out of the car. Oh, I feel like I've got to go this way a little more, actually. Just feeling over here.
I feel I'm being pulled down here. So.
Like Ruth, Debbie is heading in the right direction.
I'm being pulled more by the sound than anything at the moment. I feel like rustling sound, but it's dark.
I saw an A-line house. It was like big blocks, but I don't know whether it was actually stone or whether it was big concrete blocks, and I actually drew that. But I don't know if the house is here. It doesn't feel like it's here anymore. It's gone. Something's missing.
I just feel pulled over here for some reason. It's weird though, because I feel like I've got this view in front of me.
This is the sort of feeling I was getting, the view, the water and the shrub and the water. I'm getting something to do with a horse for some reason, a horse.
I keep being pulled and past the house.
Oh, there's the house. I'm feeling sicker now because I feel as though there's something. Oh.
We're really sick around here. I feel it's got a really awful feeling.
Debbie and Ruth approach Beth's house.
This looks new. This wasn't... Oh, there's blocks. Okay.
I know that it's not in this house. No, I'm being pulled inside the house.
Both psychics have successfully located where the body was found. The house has undergone massive renovations since the murder.
This is all different. This is so changed. It's got bits added and the roof line's different and...
The psychics are given a photograph of Beth's house as it appeared at the time of the murder.
Oh, now I understand. Okay, because I'm seeing the blocks now, but it wasn't blocks before, but it's like... all that is so different. Oh, there's the pointed roof line I was seeing. I would love to go inside because I feel that she wants to take me in there. And I also feel very strongly as though we've been barred. There's a barrier to actually going and looking in the property.
Ruth is correct. The current owners of the property did not wish to participate in our investigation.
I'm hearing how ironic with the name of the place.
Well, there's definitely two that I'm seeing around now.
Two separate cars have come on up here in, and I feel like I'm up here in the brown car. The brown car seems to have a male driving, female in the front, then another male behind.
There's something about the perpetrator knowing this house. And because it was night, it was like no one could see.
I don't feel that they broke in.
She wants to take me more to the back of the house.
All I hear is go to the right. I'm just over to the right. I don't know. Yeah, sort of something's leading off over here.
The room at the back of the house on the right was Beth's bedroom, where she was murdered.
I'm seeing tiles. I think it's like a bathroom or a laundry or something like that. Something, oh, yuck. It was done with a knife and there's quite a struggle going on. She's overpowered, knowing that she couldn't struggle anymore. She just let go, and that's when she left her body. And I'm also getting that other woman's energy.
The girl with the glasses didn't do anything.
I believe that traces of her being here were found, but there was a cover-up. That blanket feeling that I got yesterday is pervading the community, and it's like she's throwing a blanket over it. She's throwing a cover over it, covering with wet blankets. This big cover-up as though she's protecting someone, protecting the man.
My actual feeling yesterday is the girl with the glasses has actually now passed as well, because she appeared to me as well with the victim.
Before, when I was driving, we were driving down, I had a feeling in the side of my head like I'd been hit.
I was feeling a lot of pain around my head, but I also felt I was being strangled.
Now it's really like choking, coughing feeling. I feel as though she was murdered too.
Ruth and Debbie have presented compelling information that can be confirmed by police. They've also revealed staggering new information that contradicts the official findings.
Now our investigation moves up a notch as we enlist the help of a psychic detective.
That's it, this is the one.
Scott Russell Hill is the author of several best-selling books and appears regularly on television and radio.
This is the kind of housing that I've seen in my dream too.
Most of his visions play out in his dreams, like many movies.
On a deeply spiritual level, there are ways that you can find things out from lots of different elements, from numerology, astrology, and just the energy of something. Looking at all these elements combined is what gives me a spiritual profile.
Scott is presented with a copy of the coroner's finding with a view to making a psychic determination.
I think the best thing that we can do now is actually go to Phillip Island, see what I pick up from the energy of the area, and I feel strongly it will all fall into place. Going to Phillip Island gave Beth and Vivienne an opportunity to step forward and bring their energy to certain intensities, which I read as whether I'm on the right or wrong track. When I look at the spiritual profile, the vibration of the day and Beth's date of birth and her personal vibration peaked like a pyramid on the 22nd. Now, that's the day before the coroner says she was killed. It's just phenomenal to see this vibration happening, but it stops on the 22nd, not the 23rd. I'll explain it to you so you can see how incredible this is. Beth's date of birth was the 25th day of the 12th month, 1962. Now add all these numbers up, 4, 3, it comes to 55. This is Beth's spiritual number. Any other days that add up to 55 are the days when Beth was most prone to accidents, illnesses, dangerous situations, and even death. Now, when you add up the date that Beth was presumed to have died, which was the 23rd day of the 9th month, 1986, you get 23, 9, 96, 24, 56. So overall you get 55 and 56. However, if Beth died a day earlier, which was the 22nd, then it would equal 55, the same spiritual number as her date of birth. So I'm certain Beth died on the night of the 22nd because that vibration that I'm talking about ends at midnight. That's the day before the coroner determined. I feel that Beth had an argument with someone. I don't believe all this was premeditated and planned. Tempers erupted and she died as a result. I feel that the A being crisscrossed into Beth and the doona being pulled up as a feminine touch. There was a cigarette left on the scene of the brand that Vivienne smoked. That's another feminine touch. There's almost humorously obvious things set up like an episode of Murder, She Wrote. It's like it was staged or set up in some way.
With regard to Vivienne having jumped off the bridge here, I'm sorry, I just absolutely have no sense that she jumped off this bridge. Her car being left here was a red herring to throw people off the scene.
I believe that whoever perpetrated the crime decided to fix the scene in a certain way and decided between them who they would blame for the crime. And Vivienne unfortunately got the blame. The whole suicide scenario is just a cover-up for her murder. If she jumped off the bridge, she would have been washed back in. That just didn't happen, and she's still on the island.
Next, a team of PIs investigate the psychic leads and discover one piece of evidence that holds the key to the entire case.
The police obviously missed it because they never spoke to me about it and it didn't feature anywhere in their reports. I mean, it was such a small item, it was so easy to miss.
The psychics have provided some intriguing leads, but to crack the case, hard evidence is required. Former Detective Anthony Weems heads a team of private investigators. Using conventional methods, they have investigated the psychic leads and produced some cold, hard facts.
The thing that strikes me about this case is the large amount of conflicting evidence and contradictory statements. So we've taken advantage of the psychic's leads to cut through all that confusion and hopefully break the case. Tonight we'll uncover one piece of evidence that holds the key to the entire case.
I obviously missed it in my research. There's so much evidence to go through. The police obviously missed it because they never spoke to me about it and it didn't feature anywhere in their reports. I mean, it was such a small item, it was so easy to miss.
And that one piece of evidence is hidden within the following sequence of events. The first point of interest is just after 8 p.m. Fergus had left work at the Penguin Parade to visit Beth at her house on the other side of the island. Meanwhile, Vivienne was at home with Fergus's sister, Marnie. Fergus left Beth alive and well at 9:05, then returned home. He immediately took a 20-minute business call, then chatted briefly with his sister Marnie before she left.
We ran late and I had a quick chat with Beth.
I knew you were with that bitch!
Vivienne then attacked him with a wine glass, his cuts and lacerations requiring medical attention. Around 10:15 p.m, Vivienne and Fergus arrived at the Worley Hospital in Cowes. Shortly after that, Marnie and her husband Ian returned to the Cameron house to find blood and glass in the kitchen and further evidence of blood throughout the house. Vivienne and Fergus left the hospital a little after midnight and returned home. Vivienne and Fergus had a long discussion and decided to divorce, and that Fergus would have the children.
I think they'll be better off here with you.
Vivienne then dropped Fergus at his sister Marnie's house to spend the night. This was the last time Fergus and Marnie ever saw Vivienne. At 3:10 a.m, family friends the Dixons received a call from Vivienne.
Hello.
Asking them to collect the children.
Is everything all right, Viv?
The Dixons arrived a few minutes later to pick up the children. They noticed Vivienne's black handbag in the kitchen and then left with the children. At 3:30 in the morning, a neighbour of Beth's awoke to hear a loud vehicle drive by, stopping briefly somewhere in the vicinity of the Barnard house. The coroner found that Vivienne murdered Beth at this time. It was determined that Vivienne then drove to the San Remo Bridge and committed suicide. A little after 5 a.m, a baker on his rounds crossed the bridge to Phillip Island and saw a vehicle parked on the side of the road. At 9:05, Fergus sent family members to check on Beth. They discovered Beth's body and reported it to the police at 9:10. The police investigation began. At 10 a.m, Glenda Frost received a phone call from Vivienne, who was listed as missing at that stage. By 4 o'clock that afternoon, the Land Cruiser was found near San Remo Bridge. Inside the vehicle was Vivienne's black handbag, her cigarettes, and a blood-stained face washer. That one piece of evidence will be revealed tonight, along with the answers to the biggest questions.
I certainly do not feel that Vivienne is responsible for Beth's death at all.
The girl with the glasses didn't do anything.
I believe that traces of her being here were found.
It's like it was staged or set up in some way.
There were 4 items of physical evidence that placed Vivienne at the crime scene. A bloodied knife found beside Beth's body, alleged to have Vivienne's blood on the handle. Vivienne's Claridge brown cigarette butts found in an ashtray in the kitchen. 2 drops of Vivienne's Type A blood found on a walkway by the back door. And a towel soaked with Vivienne's blood type found in the bathroom. Let's start with the knife. As we revealed earlier, the scientist who tested the knife maintains it was not the murder weapon because it was not consistent with the double cuts found on Beth's body. The second item placing Vivienne at the crime scene are the cigarette butts. There was no trace of blood on the butts. Furthermore, they are transportable.
There's almost humorously obvious things set up like an episode of Murder, She Wrote.
Then there's the droplets of Type A blood, the same type as Vivienne's found on a walkway outside the back door. If Vivienne was the killer and apparently bleeding, how could she leave just 2 droplets of her own blood at the back door and none on the floor anywhere else in the house? It seems impossible.
The person has lingered in the house.
And the final item that places Vivienne at the crime scene is the blood-soaked towel. An even bigger mystery. According to homicide detectives, after killing Beth, Vivienne smeared Beth's blood all over Beth's legs and then wiped her bloodied hands on the towel. It was proven that all of the blood on Beth's legs was Beth's. It was also proven that all of the blood on the towel was Vivienne's. Vivienne's blood on that towel supposedly incriminates her, but the complete absence of Beth's blood on the same towel suggests that Vivienne did not commit the murder. Think about it. None of Beth's blood on the towel, and not a trace of Vivienne's blood found on Beth's legs.
I'm sorry, I just absolutely have no sense that she jumped off this bridge. None.
The coroner found that Vivienne jumped from the bridge in the early hours. He based this finding on a baker seeing the Land Cruiser at 5:30 a.m. However, in the baker's official statement to the police, he said, "I cannot say what type of car it was or colour. All I can say is that there was a car parked there." From the Bureau of Meteorology, we ascertained that high tide at San Remo Bridge on the morning of the 23rd was at 4:01 a.m, just a little before Vivienne was meant to have jumped. At high tide, it's actually not that dangerous. In fact, so far as we've been able to determine, nobody has ever successfully suicided from the San Remo Bridge.
I don't believe that Vivienne jumped off a bridge. That's my personal belief. I walked along the bridge, and along the railing itself, there was a continual film, I guess you could call it, of fine particles of salt. There was no break in that salt to indicate that anyone had really jumped over the bridge.
If you're talking about a murder-suicide, for example, people tend to kill themselves shortly after they've killed the individual. They tend to stay at the crime scene, not leave the crime scene.
We also spoke with Jeff Frost, police coordinator of the Air, Sea and Land Search, who's convinced that if Vivienne had have jumped off the bridge, his dive team would have recovered evidence.
There was no evidence of the bridge. There was no body ever recovered. The car was parked, you know, half a kilometre away from where perhaps one might jump off from the bridge, and I just didn't see how he could make such a specific finding when he could always have recorded an open finding. He could have said, I don't know what happened.
There's one thing that the police can't explain. Not one hair of Vivienne's Angora jumper was found in that pickup truck.
The whole suicide scenario is just a cover-up for her murder.
There was a cover-up.
I feel like there could have been a jealousy.
She's saying something about jealousy.
Jealousy is certainly a strong motive in any crime of passion. In this case, the Beth-Fergus-Vivienne love triangle is the obvious reference. But neither Fergus nor any other member of the Cameron family had a motive to kill Beth. One thing we do know is that Beth was also popular with the single men on the island. There was no shortage of admirers, with many of them being rejected. Beth did have one young admirer who seemed to take his infatuation with her to obsessive levels.
I've got this problem how he keeps mowing my lawns. And I don't want him to because I feel as if I owe him something and he doesn't. And he mowed him again on Monday and I came home and yelled at him and he got really pissed off. And he came back Monday night and got mad at me and fair income, I just feel like telling him where to go now.
He was never questioned himself, and he left the island soon after the murder. The difficulty in examining this case is the alarming amount of disappearing evidence and contradictory statements. In Fergus Cameron's official statement to police, Fergus said that Vivienne hit me with the wine glass, which broke. Those injuries were verified by hospital staff, but no trace of the broken wine glass was ever found by police. Fergus adds, Vivienne was not injured at all, as at no time was she struck. Hospital staff confirmed that Vivienne was not injured when she arrived at the hospital with Fergus. However, Vivienne did bleed at some time during the night, because the vast majority of blood samples collected from their house actually belonged to Vivienne. Whilst at the hospital, Fergus's sister Marnie and her husband came to look after the children. In Marnie's statement to police, she says that when she arrived they noticed, amongst other things, a blood-soaked face washer and a towel. Forensic police never found the blood-soaked face washer and towel in Fergus and Vivienne's house. However, forensic police did find a blood-soaked face washer in the Land Cruiser and a blood-soaked towel at Beth's. Both items were soaked in Vivienne's blood, not Beth's. There are a lot of inconsistencies in this case, including the discovery of Beth's body. Cameron family members Don and Ian said they met up in the morning, discovered Beth's body and then reported it to the police. However, they disagree on who called who, which houses they searched, which route they took, and they did the entire 25-kilometre trip, stopping off at 3 houses in just 5 minutes. Most likely it was simply a case of confusion due to the stressful situation.
Next, the final piece of evidence that will destroy the coroner's finding and set the scales of justice in motion.
The most compelling piece of evidence in our entire investigation appears to have gone unnoticed by police in their brief to the coroner, and by the coroner himself in reaching his finding. Neither Beth's doctor, who pronounced her dead, nor the post-mortem pathologist was able to estimate a time of death. Despite this, the coroner assumed that Vivienne murdered Beth at 3:30 a.m, when a neighbour heard a loud vehicle drive up to Beth's house. But Scott thinks Beth died hours earlier,
I'm certain Beth died on the night of the 22nd because that vibration that I'm talking about ends at midnight. That's the day before the coroner determined.
If Beth was murdered before midnight, as Scott suggests, then Vivienne is innocent because she had an alibi up until that time. She was with Fergus at the hospital until well after midnight. Scott's emphatic conclusion that Beth died before midnight led us to trawl through every minute detail of the case, searching for proof. And here it is. In this real crime scene photograph, taken inside a house somewhere on the island, we can see evidence of blood on papers. That blood is Beth's. That fact is confirmed by the pathologist who tested the blood, and the results are contained in his official reports. What's even more compelling is that the blood in the papers was seen by somebody on the island before midnight. That fact is confirmed in an official statement to police by the witness. That is Beth's blood in another house on the island, and it was sighted before midnight. For legal reasons, we cannot disclose who the witness was or identify the whereabouts of the house. But it's kilometres away from where it was supposed to be, and 5 hours before she was supposed to be dead.
This is the transference that I was looking for and never was able to find. There's so much evidence to go through. Overall, there were nearly 80 items of blood. It was so easy to miss. It was simply called item 23, and you had to cross-reference document after document to find out what item 23 actually was and where it came from and when it was cited. The police obviously missed it because they never spoke to me about it and it didn't feature anywhere in their reports. Finding Beth's blood on those papers could blow this thing wide open. How did that get there 5 hours before the coroner found that she was murdered? Vivienne couldn't have done it. She had no opportunity to kill Beth before then. Marnie said in her statement that she was with Vivienne from 8:30 until Fergus arrived home from Beth's. Marnie chatted with Vivienne while Fergus took a business call. Then Marnie left at 9:50.
Tell me the truth! We ran late and I had a quick chat with
Vivienne and
Beth.
Fergus had the argument, then drove straight to the hospital. They got there at 10:15 and were there till well after midnight. So if that was the case, Vivienne couldn't have done it. So we have to look to see who else could be responsible.
The psychic's clues led us to one vital piece of evidence, which can finally solve the mystery and close the lid on this case once and for all. Police have publicly stated that Victoria Police Homicide Squad deals in factual evidence and investigates accordingly. They do not employ the services of clairvoyants and psychics. This one piece of evidence is factual and is hard evidence. This information has been placed in the appropriate hands of the Victoria Police Homicide Squad.
My dream after living with this case for so long is that the police take a really, really close look at it in light of this information, and perhaps we could leave it up to them to give us the answer.
Clearly, there remain sufficient discrepancies in statements and evidence to call into question the murder of Beth and the suicide of Vivienne. The memory of both women demands that these questions be answered.
When I dream, it's like watching a movie. I've dreamt about Vivienne last night. I've seen the whole thing. I can see Vivienne sitting at a kitchen table, having a cup of tea. She feels quite emotionally exhausted to me, like she's just been so upset. A man has come up behind her, has gone over her neck, and they've gone down onto the ground with her and pulled back and stretched tight until she's died. From that point, her body has been dragged or carried out where there are horses or a barn, and she has been buried there.